Ruth Figgest, Mother and Daughter Relationships. I'll put that on. Thank you for coming to listen, and I'm really excited to talk to you about mother and daughter relationships. I'm really excited to talk to you about my book. They're on the tables around so you can have a look at them. And if you'd like to buy a book, I'd be really pleased and talk to Anna at the end. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit. I'm going to do a reading at the end. I'll talk a little bit about the basic themes of the book and how I wrote it, so that you'll appreciate a little bit more about it. So the basic themes of the book are to do with mothers and daughters. It's about a relationship between these two women, and it's told in a backward chronology. Not strictly backward, but mostly backwards. So you start actually when the mother is older and the daughter is older, and you go back in time and you start to understand a little bit more about how they came to be the people that they are, and how they came to this relationship that they have. And I did it like that. I didn't write it chronologically, but I structured it like that because... Sorry, is it possible to leave the mic? Yeah, is that better? Sorry. Yeah, that's easier, thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, is that all right? Can you hear me? Okay, good, sorry. So I didn't write it chronologically, but I structured it like that because I think that's how we get to know people. We meet people now, and they tell us a little bit about themselves. We learn a little bit more about them. They tell us a story about when they were younger. We learn more and more about them. And I wanted you to have that experience as a reader in the book and come to understand. It's also about withholding and secrets, because there's a secret, well, more than one secret, but there's a secret that you come to understand as the book unfolds. So there's a little bit of suspense, so it adds a bit of suspense to the story as well. It's also a lot of medical things in the book. I'm a clinical audiologist by background, so I've worked in hospitals all my life. I've been a patient in hospitals many times with lots of different complaints. And I think there's something about how we experience objectification as people in hospitals, objectification as women as well, and it comes through in the book. It's one of the themes of the book. And it's not, I think fiction has to be very specific. So it's about these two women, but it's also about a general feeling. I wanted to express some of the things that people experience. So when you write fiction, you talk about specifics, but you want to have a universal presented. So I'm hoping that came through. And it's funny. The potential for conflict is huge with this quite close relationship, but it's also hopefully funny. So the conflict is about this idea of competition between the women, and it's called magnetism because they are attracted to each other and very, very close, and that there's times when they really are forced apart. So you know when you turn magnets the other way around and they're forced apart. So I wanted the title to represent this kind of attraction and then this pulling apart as well. And the chapters drop back about 5-7 years in time, each chapter, and then you come to understand what's happened by learning the past. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about mothers and daughters from a point of view of thinking about chronology. Having told you that I wrote the book as a backward chronology, I'm going to talk a bit about chronology. So I think women have children for various reasons, and it affects what happens in mother and daughter relationships from there on. So some people have children without really intending to have children. They kind of have children thoughtlessly, as it were. And some children, some mothers actually have children to fulfill or complete themselves, that they feel that this relationship is somehow something very important to themselves in completing themselves. I'm the mother of 2 sons. When my first son was born, my father said to me, That's wonderful, Ruth. You'll never be alone again. And I thought that was a bit, scary, because I hadn't actually thought I was alone before I had my child. But anyway, and I think that a lot of people think that having a child means that you'll always have people around you. Some mothers go on doing that. And in this relationship, I think that's part of the problem, as it were. And then we go on from having these children, and mothers model behaviour to their daughters. So we learn how to be women very often by looking at our mothers and following their example. And that can, in some ways, that's great, because your mother can teach you about from her own experience, can tell you about life, can tell you what she's experienced and how to behave and cultural things and be good and, polite, and it's nice to be kind to people and share your toys and things like that. But they can also teach you things that they've learned that actually are really not helpful and not necessarily healthy. And then what if your child is very different from you? What's it feel like for the child to be very different from a mother? And facing that can be really quite hard. So I think we sometimes assume that our children are very like us, and they're not. And we might assume that our parents are very like us, and actually it turns out that they're not. We all have different personalities. We see each other through our own filter. And to put aside that filter and see somebody separate is quite an empowering thing for them. And I think, too, that with women, we can model behaviour in relationships. So we can model good relationships, open relationships, where you're honest and you stay in an adult relationship. Or we can model manipulative relationships to our children. And it's a huge responsibility. Being a parent's a huge responsibility. And then there's the thing where children feel that the responsibility is for them. So there's a kind of reversed parenting, where the child feels that they're responsible for their parent and they need to take care of their mother in this instance. And then the thing about chronology too is that so women have children, and the children grow up. And one of the interesting things about the book, or I hope that you'll find it interesting, is that these two women are coming at life at different points, at having the same experience. They do things together, but they are at different ages. So a teenage daughter and a woman starting to reach into middle age, there can be competition and jealousy and vicarious living. By that I mean that somebody thinks, I didn't do that, but I wish I had done that, so you do that. So somebody telling you how to behave. And then we've got this idea about a fear of being overwhelmed, and that's kind of expressed in the book when the daughter is younger. This fear of being sort of consumed by the mother, because a mother feels really big when you're a child. You remember that, I presume. And then the anxiety of daughters, this sort of striving to be separate and striving to be unique. And it's a struggle for all of us. And I'm very, very grateful that you're even interested in my book. But to be heard and to be somebody is something really special. And we all want that, don't we? We do want to be heard and we do want to be seen. The thing about parents, too, is that we're stuck in families. You know that expression that you choose your friends, but you don't choose your family. And that can really often be true. And you see people who actually don't necessarily feel they belong in their families. So if you're in a family where you don't feel you belong, and yet you're still stuck together, especially when you're very young. And so that I'm expressing in the book. And then what about as women when we age and we get older? What about turning into your mother? How does that feel? And there's a kind of a biological imperative in that too, that, we inherit our looks, we grow up in places, We have similar experiences, see the world sometimes in the same way, and we've had this behaviour modelled. And when you suddenly realise and you say something and you think, I'm saying that because I heard my parents say it, and how shocking that is, and how that makes you feel. So you're striving to be unique, and then suddenly you're the same. And that's an experience in the book for the daughter as she gets older as well. And there's quite a bit about mental health in the book, because mental health problems can affect relationships in families. They can cause this kind of dependency and codependency, and that comes through in the book as well. And I think that's an issue that everyone needs to think about. So what I'd like to do is read a bit from the book, and it's about halfway through the book. And the daughter is in her 20s, and the mother is just approaching, well, she's about 50. So I'm hoping that you'll find it of interest. And this part of the book was actually written first as a short story, and I found myself writing about the same characters repeatedly, and then realised that they were the same characters, and I thought, well, I've got a whole life here, and that's what I wrote about. So this chapter is 1981, and it's called The Idea of Sushi. And it's abridged, so that it'll make a bit more sense to you. So they've gone out for a meal, the mother and daughter. When the waitress comes over now with the menus, Mom says, "Don't know why this place is always empty. Everyone loves sushi." She says she knows what we'll have. There's no need to look at the menu, and she orders for the two of us. When the waitress has taken the order and left, I say, "I don't love sushi, Mom. I don't even like it. No one does, really. People like the idea of sushi." She looks disappointed. "You were hungry. It was close." She glances around. "Wish this place were busier." Makes you wonder. She chews her bottom lip, rubbing off her lipstick completely. "Use the chopsticks." These people like people to try to use chopsticks. Then she pauses and looks excited. "So tell me, what do you think of the doctor?" "I won't go back." "He was nice, though, wasn't he?" "He wasn't a great shrink. He said to sit wherever. He made me choose a chair. There were 5 different chairs and a sofa. What kind of a guy makes you choose a chair like that? Who has a Goodwill warehouse for an office?" We are interrupted as the food arrives quickly. But if it's raw fish, there's no cooking involved, I guess. I have to admit, it's very pretty, but there's not much of it. Is this it? 6 tidy pieces of sushi encircle a pair of minuscule shrimp sitting aside cucumber strips. The green of the cucumber matches the color of the napkins exactly. It's sushi. It's healthy. No one pigs out on sushi. Mom aligns her chopsticks by tapping them on the table. Then she rearranges her plate quickly, sliding the centerpiece to the edge. "I guess that's why you don't see any fat Japanese people." I wish I'd had a cigarette before we got here. I don't want to eat this cutesy fake food. What I'm craving is McDonald's and a hit of nicotine. I tap my fingers on the table. She reads my mind. "I wish you'd quit smoking. Did the doctor let you smoke in his office?" I shake my head. "Patty was chain smoking yesterday. You didn't tell her to stop." "It was a fashion show. They can't eat. What do you think people do at fashion shows?" "There were no smoking signs up everywhere." "Those aren't for the fashion shows. It's for the rest of the time." "I don't think so, Mom." "Why did she say you were the same age? Patty's got to be over 50. "She's entitled to an opinion, isn't she?" "Age is not an opinion." I'm always trying to force my mother to give me straight answers to questions, and she won't. She says things like, "Life isn't black and white. Sometimes 2 and 2 make 7. The latest nonsense slogan she's been throwing around is reframing the past is the path to the future. "Why do you always ask questions?" she asks. "I don't, you do." "Do I?" I've never told her that what I really want is for us to be standing in the same place, to face things together. I want there to be starting and finishing points to things. I want things to be either this or that, but she can't understand. Sometimes I have the feeling that her past just floats away like a dream behind her, that there's nothing fixed anywhere. We've finished our food. She waves her hand at the waitress who brings the check, and when she fishes out her credit card to get ready to pay, she says, "Not much." "Yep, I'm going to be hungry again soon." "I meant it was a bargain, cheap," she says. "Sushi isn't like that. Did you think it was supposed to fill you up?" We're out in the heat again, walking across the car when she says, "Do you think he'd make a nice dad?" She passes me a mint before I can dig out a cigarette to smoke. "Who?" "The doctor. Who else?" "Has he got kids?" "Do you think I should marry him?" I spit out the mint that I've just put in my mouth and it pings on the ground. "Do you think that is a crazy idea?" I feel I have to point out to her that she's already married to Dad. We fall silent as I drive over to the drugstore. At Walgreens, we go straight to the ice cream counter. I order 2 scoops of praline and cream ice cream, not yogurt, for each of us. Mom tells me the calorie count, then tells me we can ignore it because it's been a long day and we only had a sushi earlier. We eat the ice cream outside, spooning it with minuscule pink spoons from little cardboard tubs. In the shade, it's not so hot, and the ice cream is smooth and delicious. The familiarity is soothing. We've been coming here for years just for this. I ask her if she said anything to Dad, and she says it's possible he'd understand. "You're off this planet if you think he will. Does Paddy know?" "No," she shrugs. "I don't think she does." Suddenly, my mother looks very tired. Things don't turn out the way you want them to sometimes. It's just incredibly sad. Can you believe that? "Of course," I say. I see that her life has probably had lots of closed doors, and I guess if one is open, or at least ajar, she might not want to walk right past it. Maybe she's just trying this on now, like clothes yesterday. A person needs to peek inside to see if it might fit. So I say, "Are you seriously considering leaving Dad for this jerk?" "Yes. I don't know. Maybe I am." I understand that she just wants me to know that she's not just my mom. She's always been a person with possibilities. I go over the whole rainbow from being angry about the setup today to feeling sorry for her. She doesn't entirely belong to me, but to all of her past as well as her present, and even the parts and people I don't know about. Because I'm her daughter, we are forever part of each other. It's different for us because our lives overlap. We're in it together. We're in that Japanese restaurant and outside this drugstore together forever. I'm scared of the responsibility of being the one person who knows this big, sad thing about her. But I don't really want to feel sorry for her. I want to make this thing today small as a joke. She can be looking straight at me, and even through me, but I never know what she's thinking about me. She can read my mind sometimes. I've noticed that if I catch sight of her in profile, my mother looks like a total stranger, someone completely hidden from my understanding. I'm small in comparison. She's the sun and the entire universe combined.